So again, now I think for the 26th time, it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce our presenter for this evening, Katie Carlson. Katie serves as the Director of Wellness Initiatives for the Marion County Sheriff's Office in Indianapolis, Indiana. She is responsible for the implementation, execution, and oversight of the Marion County Sheriff's Office wellness programs. She also serves as the coordinator of the MCSO peer support team. Earlier this year, Katie was honored with the Emerging Leader in Crisis Intervention Award from the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation for her work in peer support and holistic wellness for public safety personnel. Congratulations, Katie. Before assuming her current role, she served as the Public Information Officer for Marion County Sheriff's Office for nearly 8.5 years. Katie is a certified yoga teacher. She was trained at City Yoga there in Indianapolis in 2019 and certified mindfulness teacher through the Engaged Mindfulness Institute, where she received her certification there in 2022. Ms. Carlson teaches yoga and mindfulness meditation to law enforcement, corrections, and public safety personnel, to inmates in the county's adult detention center, as well as for members of her Garfield Park community in Indianapolis. Ms. Carlson is a writer and frequent presenter on the topics of yoga, mindfulness, and public safety. Just 2 weeks ago, she was featured on the popular Badge of Honor podcast, number 60, if you'd like to look that up and have another listen to Katie. So Katie, you're very welcome to be here. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy and grateful to be here with you all tonight. This presentation is going to be considerably different than most of the ones that I've done in the past. I've typically talked about a lot of different yoga philosophy, and I've done a couple other presentations, but this, I honestly I don't have a PowerPoint, and I don't even have a whole lot on the subject to present. I'm going to be presenting a little bit of basics, and we're going to be spending a lot of the time today in dyads actually going through some hope practices, or the central tenet of hope practices. And also I'll add that when we we try to give a certain amount of time with our presentation titles in advance. So when we look back at this one, John, it might be called something else. I will talk a little bit about hope science and how we are implementing it in the peer support team. So I had the honor at the end of October to go to Washington, D.C. for some meetings at the Department of Justice and the Office of Victims of Crime, to really discuss some ways to move forward with hope science. And it's a very new field of study, really. But the basis of hope science is that hope is not a feeling, and it's not this watered down word, I hope you have a good day. That hope truly, and because we use it so often and really in kind of an incorrect way in the English language, the true meaning of hope has been watered down a lot. But what the real definition of hope would be is that the future can be better than the present, and there's something you can do about it. And so when you say, oh, I hope you have a good day, there's nothing you can do to actually make someone else have a good day. So that's a wish. And so we have to, with hope science, we're kind of separating hoping from wishing. And what makes it a science is that hope can be studied in people, and everybody has, either high levels of hope or medium levels of hope or low levels of hope, but that they can be different for different areas of your life. So I'll start by saying that this is all based on the work of Dr. Chan Hellman of the University of Oklahoma. I mean, he's an incredible person, and an excellent book. If you're, eventually I'll mention this again at the end on this topic, is by Chan and Casey Gwynn, and it's called Hope Rising. So basically everything that I'm about to say is a product of, it comes, primarily from Chan's research. So one of the things that they've done on their website is they've created a little test, and I can send out that email at some point in time, or that link, to be able to measure your own hope score. So we all would have a different hope score that pertains to us. And then what makes hope a science is that we can measure that score, and we can raise that score, and we can decrease that score. But the premise of hope science is that the main way to be able to increase one's hope score is to set goals. But the goals have to have two things. The first thing is that the goals have to have pathways. And this is always the example that I use. So if you've heard this before, forgive me, but I could want to be the next Taylor Swift, but I'm 40, my voice is usually hoarse, and I have no other musical talent, other than a little bit of an ear. So I don't have pathways to becoming the next Taylor Swift. But if my goal was to implement Hope Science at the Marion County Sheriff's Office in, multiple divisions, then that's a goal that I have pathways to. The other thing that you have to have is willpower. So you can have all of the steps in front of you, but if you don't take those steps, if you don't actually move forward, then you're not going to increase your hope score with these goals. What I love about hope science, also, the science of hope, it kind of goes both ways, is that it is that simple. So that's why I don't have this really long presentation. It's you can increase your hope with goals that have pathways and having willpower. And so it's we're going to be practicing some goal setting today. But one of the things and you can do this in groups, and one of the reasons it's being studied for law enforcement is really to try to increase, the hope score within law enforcement agencies. One of the other things that I think is just amazing about hope is that across 2,000 studies, hope is almost universally a good thing, almost universally associated with higher health outcomes, higher retention outcomes. And so you cannot go wrong. Increasing your hope score is almost bound to increase your personal well-being. So as we look at all these other areas of well-being for in public safety and in law enforcement, this is one way to be able to really implement some of these big ideas. Really, even as individuals, sometimes we can have a goal and it can seem a little bit far off. So Hope Science just provides some mechanisms to be able to achieve our goals and then have the outcome of that kind of higher quality of life in various areas. So I also want to give a couple shout outs. There's another organization I work with a lot on this topic, and they're really how I got hooked in. They're called Social Current. They do a ton of work in DEI. They're doing a lot of work with psychological safety right now. So just doing some really important stuff, especially in the field of public safety and law enforcement, particularly Romero Davis, who I've been working with there, is amazing. And all of this has been funded through a grant, or a lot of this has been funded through a grant through the Department of Justice Office of Victims of Crime. So, I've just been blown away by this topic. Again, how simple it is. And, I would really love to see at the Marion County Sheriff's Office for every single one of our employees to have a goal, one thing that they're working towards. And it doesn't matter if it is work goal, work related, or a personal goal, but for everybody to have a goal. So what we've done with the Marion County Sheriff's Office peer support team, because this is something that is almost a guaranteed pathway to a higher quality of life to at least some extent, we have been working to implement it into our peer support team, and we've been using the process of Hope Science. We've been doing that in a couple different ways. I have gone through, and what we're going to be doing today is a Hope Navigator training. So there are opportunities for this Hope Navigator training, and that provides an opportunity to do one-on-one goal setting. And so we've been offering that at the sheriff's office, and I've been doing one-on-ones, and it's been really an interesting process. But then you can use it in small groups, and you can use it in teams. So as a peer support team, we use this process, and I, as the coordinator, went in, and also planning on doing it, went in with a completely blank slate. I truly didn't have any particular goal or particular idea in mind as we brainstormed some good goals for our team to be able to have something where we can be moving forward on this kind of upward trajectory that Hope provides. So we ended up settling on several goals, and it's funny because what we ended up landing on, or the goal we chose to implement, was to increase awareness of the Marion County Sheriff's Office peer support team. We have formed a separate work group away from our regular peer support meetings, and what's interesting is that, and I don't want to share it. I don't want it because it hasn't been approved yet, and so I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth. But it's funny because as I look back at all of our goals, the idea that we came up with, or the project that we are working to implement, really meets so many more of the goals that we even had on that page than I was expecting. But we we kind of had determined, well, maybe we'll have a speaker, or maybe we'll do some kind of drive, like a donation drive. And so what part of the process of Hope Science, and I'm about to share my screen and start looking at these different worksheets. And what we're going to do is a couple rounds of breath work, I've decided. So I'm gonna show you guys the screen, the worksheets. We'll do a few rounds of breath just so we kind of get our creative juices flowing, and then we're going to break out into dyads to go through this this goal setting process with each other. So we'll probably break into probably about 8 minutes for the first one, or maybe about 4 minutes for the first one, 8 minutes for the second one. So we'll take a look. So it's going to seem a little bit jumpy because we're going to be doing some breath work. We're going to be breaking into groups, but I think that it will be worthwhile. I'll mention, and so now I'll share my screen. So actually, and we will break out into 8 minutes for this first one. So what we'll do is we'll break that time up into 4 minutes and 4 minutes. And the recommendation is to really, we're kind of spitballing our goals tonight. You guys didn't have a ton of time to think about this, but what we're going to do is we're going to share a goal of some sort in our dyad, and then we're going to take an even amount of time each to go through these topics. And so we're going to be interviewing each other in a sense. And if someone isn't able to see it, maybe the other person in their group can help them. So if your goal is to let's say start a new peer support team, I'll ask that person, okay, is that an achievement goal or an avoidance goal? And then you'll answer that. And then there's the degree of difficulty. And so it's like not very hard or very hard. Stretch versus mastery is stretch. You don't really have the skills totally yet to do it. You may need to implement some skills, versus I already have all the skills that I need to do it. Estimated time of completion, degree of change involved, that can be small or that can be big. Support networks and available resources, and potential barriers and beneficiaries. Don't think too much about potential barriers because we're going to do that in a second group. So does that make sense? We're going to break into the groups. We'll share a goal and then we'll ask each other, is it achievement? Is it avoidance? And then we'll just go through those questions. Can I get a thumbs up if that makes sense? Okay. All right. So let's just take, I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to drop these 2 items into the chat, or the first item. Okay. So that PDF is in the chat, and then we'll just adjust our seats and get ready to take a few rounds of breath before we break out into these groups. And so we'll do about 4 rounds of straw breathing here, starting with an exhale. We'll breathe in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 8 through pursed lips, as if you're breathing out through a straw. If this breath count isn't something that's comfortable to you, you can make any adjustments that you need to make for it to feel comfortable. Any elongation of your exhale will be beneficial to shifting your body from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic state. So we'll start with that big exhale, pushing all the air out of our lungs. Then we'll start to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out through pursed lips, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, out through pursed lips, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, out through pursed lips, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, out through pursed lips, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and return to your normal breath. All right, so we'll go into these rooms of 2. If you can't get the worksheet open, just maybe holler it. All right. Shall I interview you first?
I'm having trouble trying to find a goal, to come up with a goal.
That kind of surprises me with you. You're always working on something.
I've got lots of stuff I'm working on. It's very interesting to frame it as a goal when you put in place the idea of, actually having a pathway. Anyways, I find this really fascinating. So maybe I'll interview you.
Okay, that works.
To start, right? We got 4 minutes.
Yep.
Do we start with you stating the goal?
Yeah. So let's see. My goal, I'll say my goal is to compete in a climbing competition.
Okay. Fun goal. And so is this a goal of achievement or a goal of avoidance?
Definitely achievement.
Okay. And what's the degree of difficulty for you too?
It's not easy. So it's pretty difficult. I don't think that, I think I'd have good nerves for the competition, that I'd be okay with that. But even that's challenging, something that's kind of unusual. So it'll be difficult.
Do we discuss any of these points?
You can. You don't have to. If you have questions, you're welcome to. But
okay. Well, so in terms of this difficulty, the next question is regarding stretch. Is this a stretch for you, or do you feel you already have mastered the skills?
Yeah, definitely a stretch, because I broke through a plateau right before I got COVID. And so, and I'm right back. I can't do some of the ones that I could do before COVID right now. Competing on the walls that I've been on competition walls outside of competition, and in the recreational category, I can do those. And so for the most part, but it's weird because you don't know what the wall will be, or whether it's in your thing or not until the competition. So you, and it's funny because it really is a literally stretch goal.
So these competition climbs are uniquely designed for each climb.
They're challenging. It
Yeah.
would be, yeah, they're hard, a
Okay.
little harder than usual.
And so what is your time frame? When would you like to compete?
Within a year, but I would, my gym, people say like you should, try your home gym and for one. But my gym had a competition a couple months ago and I was out of town for it and I don't want to wait 10 months. So I'm looking for things in like Louisville or Bloomington or other gyms that might have something similar that I could sign up and travel to.
Okay. So you have a timeline. Now, this question, degree of change involved. Yeah. So how much of a shift or a change is this in your current life to go down this path?
Not a ton, as long, when COVID kind of not, I'm trying to go. I think that I can compete at that recreational level, climbing 2 or 3 times a week, which is what I do when I don't get kind of knocked off course. So as long as I can kind of stay in that, if I could go 4 times, that'd be really amazing. But I think idealistically, I could complete some climbs and a competition climbing it, 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
And I don't have to win. I'm not expecting to win. I just want to do it.
Yeah. Okay. And so the next question regarding resources, the available resources needed and support networks or support networks to help, I guess, to help train you or to provide space for you to train and learn.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the gym. If I wanted to, I could take some classes or some coaching, but I
Right.
just kind of, for me, it's a pretty big by myself activity.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. But there
So
are coaches if you wanted to get some coaching.
uh-huh,
Yeah. Okay. So that would be a support network.
yeah.
Um, so
How are
what
we
are
doing
some,
on time? Do you know?
well, we are probably going to get you completed. We
Oh
have about
no.
2.5 minutes left.
Oh, should we switch?
No, I'm in the middle of avoidance right now, so I'm feeling really about this. Well, we have 2 more questions. So
Okay.
what potential barriers, though we're
And you
not
can
going to,
always use this worksheet on your own,
yeah. No, I will.
too. Potential barriers would be getting knocked off training tracks again. An injury would be a potential barrier. Every time I kind of get hurt, but I think besides time or my body, I don't see too much.
Okay. And you don't want to go too much into those. Okay, so let's move to the last question is, who is this beneficial for? Who are the beneficiaries of you doing this?
Me. I mean, primarily, I think it'd be me, but I think that just today I was teaching a class and one of the guys and it was like, I start taking yoga because I started climbing at North Mass Boulder. And so, I think that it supports me and the work that I do for others. So, as long as I'm serving and it serves me, maybe it can serve other people too.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely see that, uh, just in terms of your own health, your vitality, and being able to then move forward with all of the incredible work that you do and the challenges of, I'm sure, sleep and travel and stress and all
It's
that.
such a relief to, I mean, climbing, it's just my totally different thing. And so it's a huge, I hope everybody can have something like it,
Mhm.
but they don't. Because,
Yeah, yeah.
I like today, this group of, I was working with a group and, it's hard sometimes even getting a room full of people to share physical activity that they participate in.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so I guess, if I was going to try to figure out a goal, what I need to work on is the distinction between a wish and a goal, a wish and a hope and a goal, right? And I think that's really fascinating. That for me, that gives me some stuff to think about. So, I set goals in terms of my physical activity. I generally set goals at the beginning of every year. I work with my coach and we sort of set goals, and um, but I have had a lot of setbacks in my pathway to my goals, and so I need to reset goals. And But anyways, so thank you for this. We're going to come back out of our group, and I'm sure you'll debrief this with folks as they come back.
Yeah, I will. I know from our group that that was probably not enough time to get through both. So did anybody get through one or anything that they could share from the process of going through those questions? And I'm also particularly interested. Well, yeah, just if does anyone have anything to share?
Well, I just identified that I am committed to doing a year of yoga in 2024. And I have one prop, I have another prop here. So it's going to be yin yoga. And I've been wanting to do an intensive in that for some time. And it's unfortunately one of the person we would like to study with, Paul Grilly, just looks like he's doing everything on Zoom, and I refuse to do something on Zoom. I'm not I don't do Zoom yoga. So, so that is a very important goal for me, and one that I will not surrender.
Did you go through the work, some of those questions on the like the stretch and mastery?
It just touched on that, but also the difficulty is not it's not difficult. I'm going to do it in the States. I'm not going to. Some folks that are teaching I really respect are over in Europe. I'm not going to Europe.
Yeah.
But it's really a matter of finding time and place. That's a mechanical thing, and I've kind of already gone through that, and I've identified probably a course I'll be taking will be in July in Kripalu. So I'll be going back there. I took a course many years ago, 2006, with Mukunda Stiles and structural yoga therapy. So we'll be kind of going back to a really wonderful place and a wonderful experience.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anything else come up during the process, Sherry?
What I found interesting when in talking with Richard was we also touched on the whether, and I couldn't remember the exact words, but we're novice or a master at this goal. And it really it wasn't spontaneous. Oh well, no, I'm not, or yes, I am. That really was very a thought-provoking question. Well, I am but, and I'm not but. So that there was a lot of, I thought that was a good question to gain insight and, to provoke some thinking about the self.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone, and I know we were a little bit rushed through just with our hour time constraint. I feel like probably 15 minutes would have been better and probably going to stay that way for all of these. But it feels kind of nice to have someone ask you about your goal, right? And to share about your goal and to kind of be asking these questions and sort of be interviewed. And so I just want to touch on that point with some of this process and with Hope Science. We can do these worksheets on your own, but being able to have somebody else ask you the questions and show this interest in your goal, and just even really being able to talk through, I shared in ours about and really not off the top of my head, it's something I want to do about, I want to do a climbing competition, sometime in the next year or so. But I'd never really thought about exactly like what you said, Sherry, stretch or mastery. I joked that it's actually a stretch goal. Get it? Climbing. So sorry. Okay. So we are not going to spend much time back in here. We're going to go back into our rooms. If maybe one person got the bigger end or a bigger chunk of time, that we can switch a little bit and or go backwards, because I think we'll be, John, is it okay to be with the same groups? And let me drop one more worksheet. Actually, I'm going to share my screen one more time. I'll go through this worksheet. Okay. Now I can see it.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the project implementation worksheet. So sticking with whatever goal you may have mentioned, this time we're going to talk about some of the pathways and some of the potential barriers. So we'll just think about that a little bit more. That was one of the questions, but really the pathways are what we're going to talk about the most. And why don't we do like 12 minutes would put us at 53. That's enough time. Why don't we look at we've already talked about barriers on that front way, so let's look at pathways and let's look at benchmarks and just start considering what some of the different benchmarks for the particular goal would be. So again, if you can't see it, just what are some of the ways that we're going to get there? How can we measure some of those ways? And we can just talk about that as a group and then use that later. So I'll stop my share.
Katie, I was able to put question 1 and 4 in the chat, so it's there in text.
Okay, great.
We'll be able to read that through
Thank
chat.
You. Well, would you like to anything with your coach come up or stir up during the first session?
Well, gosh, I guess there could be like a million of them, but so I could say that really a goal, because I'm recovering from some physical challenges. One of the things that I really miss that I haven't been doing that I had done for about 5 or 6 years was riding my bicycle outside. I live in Southern California, and you really can pretty much do that. As long as it's not raining, which happens rarely, you can pretty much do that any weekend, so I tend to take, Saturday morning and ride for whatever. If it's like now, it'll be half an hour or it'll go up to 2 hours. We sort of a max ride. So we could say that one of my goals really is to get back out on my, it's a triathlon bike, and it's, it's down in the Arrow, and it's really quite a trip to ride that thing. I love it.
Well, so what are some of the pathways you can use to move toward that goal, getting back out there?
Well, the pathways will be for me to, in general, feel as though my overall aerobic health and my not really my stamina, but my immunity health is sort of at least up a couple of notches. And that's a little confusing. Like, I don't really know what the pathway is to really improve my immunity, other than obviously to get a lot of sleep. But there are challenges around that. But in terms of my aerobic capacity, as long as I'm managing my fatigue, then I have a trainer indoors. It's a different bike. It's hooked up, and I just need to get on that and do some more training. And I run from my house. I'm not capable of riding from the house because in Los Angeles it's too dangerous. I need to put the bike on a car. So I've got all that pathways in place. I've got the bike rack, boom, I put the bike on, I drive 45 minutes, I get to a place where it's safe to ride, So some of the pathways would be scheduling. And so I'm doing little 30-minute rides on my trainer to build back capacity. So it's really a matter of building back some capacity and feeling like it's worth my time to drive 45 minutes out, 45 minutes back, and I'm not just doing a 30-minute ride. I kind of like more.
What is 45 minutes away?
Oh, well, I go to West.
Get you?
Pardon me?
How far does that even get you in LA?
Oh, well, where I live, that gets me either to Westlake, where drivers are very much trained, because a ton of people ride their bikes out there. A lot of bikies out there all over the place. And then I can either go in a completely different area where there's a dedicated paved bike path.
Well, since we didn't get to talk about barriers, since you didn't, we spent most of that first one, or all of that first one, really on me. Do you want to talk about barriers, and we can look at benchmarks? What's
Yeah.
I know you talked about your immunity, not immunity.
Yeah, and so another one of the barriers is the unknown fatigue. So I have something that's kind of roughly known as post-exertion fatigue, PEF, or something like that. And it's one of the it's one of the benchmarks of long COVID, but it's unpredictable. And it's a funny thing because when I train, I feel great. It's like, yeah, I remember this. This is good. I can do this, And then there is a time period which could be half a day, 2 days, 3 days. I don't really know. It's like I kind of crumble, and I need to nap. So this fatigue thing. So that's a barrier because it's just so unpredictable. And my initial years of training, it was very predictable. I knew what I was getting into. Right. And another barrier just is sort of getting back into the habit, because I really had dedicated so much time to that. And now I'm starting to spend my time elsewhere. So I'm developing other habits, and I'm doing stuff around the house, and I'm working in the garden, and, so yeah.
Yeah. Time manages to fill itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. And I have a lot of support from my partner.
Mhm.
My partner is completely supportive, like, go out and do that stuff. They know how important it is to me, sort of like, spiritually but physically as well. So I guess one of the achievements will be vitality, and I have a lot of grandkids, and I want to be vital for many, many years, and to be able to be with them and play with them, and have sort of strength and stamina that way. So what would benchmarks be in terms of getting back out on the road?
Yeah.
Benchmarks would be, I would say, I do different types of trainer rides. I do aerobic zone 2 trainer rides, and I can do those 30 minutes. I'll build that to 40, 45, 50. I'll build it to 60 minutes.
Mhm.
And that's, and that would be a benchmark. Like if I was doing 60-minute zone 2 aerobic rides, then I would feel, yeah, it'd be good to go to the road for 40, 45 minutes. But I also do much higher intensity interval training on my trainer. I do cadence ladders and different types of. So if I was feeling comfortable doing some one day of a mixed zone 2 and high intensity, along with one more day of riding and one day of running, I think that I would feel like, yeah, I probably won't have the major fatigue that could wipe me out for the next week, right?
Yeah.
So I would think those would be benchmarks if I could work towards. And my coach right now is just being really cautious, and she's saying, let's just do 30 minutes and just see how your body reacts, because I've been off basically for 8 weeks, over 8 weeks,
Yeah.
So I think, just as I think out loud. So it's interesting. This clearly, I would think, is utilized as a brainstorming technique. Is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, for all the, just to I'd call it just kind of identifying. So, really what these different things are, these kinds of pathways to being able to achieve it. Do you already have your bike rack on your car?
I took it off, actually. Last time I went to
Maybe
visit the
that's a
grandkids.
mental step that you
Yeah.
can take.
Put it back on the car. Yeah, I just had to move it around today. So yeah, I could put the bike rack back on. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I took it off.
That's what I like about the being able to find, because it's hard when you have your benchmarks have to be and what I love about science is that your goals can be super small too, and that you can do this with big goals, you can do this with small goals, and and where it really is most impactful. And I should probably wait, but if someone's watching the recording, they can see this, but really in people, it's been studied a lot in domestic violence, with children that have experienced like homes of domestic violence and workers of them. And so it's those little ones, you build this hope is really buildable. And so it's nice. So just kind of setting the one ride with no necessarily expectations of, okay, and once I'm doing this, then I have to go back every we can do it, and or just kind of allowing, and I'm not trying to work out your goals, but just kind of letting yourself get to the one ride. Some the thing that came up not too long ago, someone was talking about forming friendships, and I just thought this was a great, and so it's so interesting thinking about those benchmarks, to going out and creating relationships with people
Mhm.
and seeing
Yeah,
what
so
happens.
that's really interesting. So that, that reminds me of so much of what we talk about in our training in BWR that you've been involved with, is that small incremental changes over time obviously have a huge impact. But if you try to do too much at once, you're setting yourself up to fail, right? So I think that that's probably very true with goals, right? And I think that's where I was kind of tripping up a little bit earlier on. It's like, well, I have all kinds of wishes. I would love to see things happen, different things happening in my life and in our work. And but that to me feels like a wish, like that, but can we break it down to these small goals that actually have pathways and benchmarks?
And you break it down to what you can do and what you can control. We can only do so much, but if we can kind of, we could set a goal about our own attitude towards something that we don't have control over. So really any of these things, yeah, I just think it's a neat process, and really helps kind of change the way you look at it. Like nothing seems very impossible from it, unless you want to be Taylor Swift. The person of the year. I mean,
she also is #1 streamer on Spotify, but that's another story. So what I'm seeing is that it's really a process, or it can be utilized that way. And like I was saying, as a brainstorming. So even if it's a small goal, it's because it kind of feels like if I'm being interviewed, I want to have my answers already. Like, it feels like, gee, do I need to come in with all these answers, or is this a conversation more? And in terms of sparking people's internal dialogue, and with groups, if you're working with groups and your peer support, and what does the group want to accomplish? What does peer support want to accomplish? Or what goals? And again, I guess they could be very small goals, right?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I will just open it up again. Anything interesting come up in conversation when it comes to identifying pathways or benchmarks for our goals?
I think that it would be easier to do this for a personal single goal, do it by yourself. And if we're going to try to do it for a group, I almost like to see like a 15 or 20 minute documentary or whatever to actually watch a group going through this process, because I would think this would be very difficult to achieve much very fast with a group. I could see where it's a very helpful tool for some fairly reasonably simple thing that we have control over, like Richard described. I mean, it's a perfect thing really for what Richard wants to do. But, Gary and I kind of got hung up on these large things where, other people's behavior, other people's mastery. And I even got hung up on the whole deal of trying to figure out what the achievement or avoidance thing went in the first breakout room.
Yeah, and that's just not having very much time for this presentation. I was telling John, I've done this for friends before, and we've talked over for an hour just about them. And so, this is a really nice thing to be able, when you have that time and when you have that space. So being able to print off these material and find, not an accountability buddy. I don't want to make it even like hope sound punishing, but, someone who cares about you, someone who wants to see you be able to succeed and to be able to trade, this time with each other would be a great recommendation on those small and on those individual individuals. And with time, it flowed really rather quite easily with our group, being able to shout it all out and identify. And of course, I had big paper and was able to write everything down. So the lack of time was the main thing that doesn't serve, but or that didn't serve us here. But again, the worksheets are something you can download, and really highly recommend trading that time with somebody or working through these on your own and being able to think them through. John, if I can not speak for you, but share something. You mentioned just being able to, oh gosh, it just slipped my mind. But yeah, so these are just, it's tools, it's a process, it's a conversation. There can be a lot of back and forth.
Well, I wanted to throw something out, Robert, if you'd allow me, because some of the work that you and I have done in the past has included having a fairly regular meeting, right? And we had established that for a while, and that has slipped away over time. But in terms of, so that's group work, right? And we could, I can see how this structure could work, even if it was as small as, let's schedule a meeting and let's look at, what kind of goal is that? Well, and so if the goal is we have a meeting once every 2 weeks, so are we avoiding something by doing that? Are we achieving? Well, we would at least be achieving spending some time together and talking about what's important to us. How difficult is it? We could go through that process, and I can see, and it feels to me like if they're really small goals for a group, that could kind of initiate this process. But it seems like a very valuable process to look at all of these. I'm sorry, process may be more appropriate to those of us south of the border here. It's my old Canadian accent popping in. But yeah, this to set up a timeline, right? And of course, it's not going to be solid, but yeah. So anyways, I appreciate you saying that, Robert, because it's like, well, yeah, it could be overwhelmingly big, right? Well, I want to take over the world, or it could be, well, gee, I'd like to have a meeting in 2 weeks.
And that's where we identify, what's a goal and what's a wish, and what can we, going back to that definition of hope, tomorrow can be better and there's something I can do about it. So it's not just what can I do tomorrow, but what can I do in the next 6 months? So we can't, hang all of our hope on, other people, but so being able to kind of identify, and that might mean bringing the goals smaller and smaller. But as you achieve, hope is built, and John and I were talking about this, hope is buildable. So as you achieve these small goals, like having a meeting or hosting an event, we don't have to, okay, I'm going to change the culture of this organization. You can have one, class, and that can be the first goal. What do I have to do to get to this class? And so, yeah, when, starting small is definitely the recommendation, especially if there aren't those clear pathways to the goal. Then you've got to kind of redirect your energy, because otherwise then we spend all of our energy trying to go somewhere where we don't have any pathways. So it's very similar to mindfulness. That's one of the other things that I love about this, is that we're recognizing, when, like, here, this is our object of mindfulness, this particular goal, this thing that we can do, and then what's our barrier, what's getting in the way of that, and then bringing our attention and our focus back to something that's achievable. So it's 9:01, so I think we're out of time today. This is as a semi, a somewhat sometimes host. But thank you for all of your participation on this topic. We'll get those worksheets out, and yeah, we just really appreciate your time.